Surviving profound hardship is not merely a test of endurance but an initiation into a deeper realm of self-awareness and transformation, a crucible where the soul is forged anew through fire and shadow, echoing Carl Jung's profound insight that suffering can act as a catalyst for individuation and the emergence of psychological wholeness. This journey through fire strips away the illusions and facades accumulated over a lifetime, confronting the individual with the raw, unvarnished truth of their own existence and psyche. It is within this intense confrontation with pain, loss and despair that the process of integration begins, a sacred unfolding where fractured parts of the self, once denied or repressed, are called forth to be seen, embraced and woven into the fabric of a more authentic and resilient identity. Jung described individuation as the lifelong task of becoming whole, of harmonizing the conscious and unconscious elements within us, and it is through the furnace of hardship that this process gains momentum, compelling the soul to shed superficial attachments and false narratives that no longer serve its growth. The woman who emerges from such trials unbreakable is not one untouched by pain, but one profoundly changed by it, carrying within her the scars and wisdom of battle like ancient maps that guide her toward deeper understanding and freedom. This transformation is not a linear path, but a spiral of descent and ascent, where darkness and light dance in dynamic tension, inviting surrender and courage in equal measure. The suffering endured becomes sacred ground where resilience is born not from denial or avoidance, but from the radical acceptance of all that is within and around her. In this way, hardship is transmuted into a teacher and ally, revealing the hidden strengths of the psyche and the reservoirs of untapped power that lie beneath vulnerability. Jung's vision reminds us that the path to wholeness requires facing the shadow self with honesty and compassion, and it is this willingness to engage with the full spectrum of human experience that marks the unbreakable woman's journey. She learns that to be unbreakable is not to be invulnerable, but to carry vulnerability with grace, allowing pain to refine rather than define her. Her endurance is not a stoic repression, but a dynamic process of growth where each trial deepens her connection to the self, the core of being that transcends circumstance and egoic identity. This initiation through suffering rewrites the story of her life, shifting it from one of victimhood to one of empowerment and sacred purpose. It awakens in her a profound sense of meaning that infuses every moment with significance and invites her to participate fully in the unfolding mystery of existence. The fire she has walked through becomes both a forge and a beacon, illuminating the path for herself and others who seek to transform pain into power. In embracing this journey, she embodies Jung's timeless truth that psychological wholeness and individuation arise not despite suffering but because of it, transforming brokenness into a source of unshakable strength and radiant authenticity. Habit 1 emerges as a profound act of courage and authenticity where a woman chooses to face her shadow without fear, embodying the very essence of Carl Jung's teachings that true wholeness arises not from denying or repressing the darkest parts of ourselves, but from integrating them into a unified self. She acknowledges the pain, wounds, fears, and impulses that dwell in the unconscious realms of her psyche, those aspects often cast into darkness because they challenge our sense of control and safety. This embrace is not a passive acceptance but an active engagement with the shadow, a willingness to shine light into the corners of her soul where complexity and contradiction reside. In doing so, she transforms what was once a source of shame, fragmentation, or self-sabotage into a wellspring of power, resilience, and insight. Her shadow becomes a teacher rather than a tormentor, revealing hidden strengths and authentic parts that enrich her being and inform her choices. This process requires immense honesty and humility, for to embrace the shadow is to confront uncomfortable truths and relinquish illusions of perfection. Yet through this integration, she dissolves the internal conflicts that once drained her energy and sabotaged her growth, replacing them with a coherent and compassionate understanding of self. Jung described the shadow as a reservoir of repressed qualities, and by reclaiming these, she gains access to creativity, passion, and depth that were previously inaccessible. This habit fosters emotional maturity, as she no longer projects her fears or anger onto others but holds them within her conscious awareness, choosing response over reaction. It cultivates a profound inner balance, where light and dark coexist without judgment, allowing her to navigate life's complexities with grace and strength. By embracing her shadow, she models a form of power that is grounded in authenticity rather than dominance, inviting others to do the same without fear of rejection or abandonment. This habit transforms vulnerability into a source of connection and healing, breaking the isolation that comes from hiding parts of oneself. In a culture often fixated on surface appearances and denial of discomfort, her willingness to embrace shadow stands as a radical act of self-love and rebellion. It redefines strength as the courage to be whole, to carry contradictions, and to walk forward with all parts of the soul intact. This habit is a continual practice, a lifelong dialogue between conscious light and unconscious depths that enriches her journey of individuation and self-realization. Her shadow work deepens her empathy and compassion, allowing her to forgive herself and others, fostering peace where there was once turmoil. It grounds her in a reality that honors complexity rather than oversimplification, making her presence both magnetic and stabilizing to those around her. Through this habit, she claims her narrative fully, no longer fragmented by denial but integrated in truth, becoming unbreakable not by avoiding darkness, but by transforming it into a source of enduring light and power. Habit 2 blossoms as a sacred embodiment of emotional sovereignty, where a woman, shaped by the profound wisdom of Carl Jung, cultivates an internal fortress of emotional regulation that frees her from the need for external validation or the instability of dependent relationships. She has journeyed deep within, integrating the light and shadow of her psyche to forge a resilience that is not brittle but supple, capable of withstanding the inevitable tempests of life without fracturing or losing coherence. This sovereign emotional state arises from a commitment to self-awareness and self-care, where feelings are neither suppressed nor uncontrolled but held in conscious embrace and transformed through understanding. She recognizes that emotions are not enemies to be subdued but messengers to be honored, and by listening deeply to their language, she nurtures an equilibrium that anchors her amidst chaos. Jung taught that individuation requires the harmonization of opposites within the psyche, and her emotional sovereignty exemplifies this balance, where vulnerability and strength coexist without contradiction or denial. She no longer seeks affirmation from others to soothe internal unrest, knowing that true stability springs from within the wellspring of the self, a place untouched by external turbulence or conditional acceptance. This habit allows her to engage with the world authentically and responsively, responding to challenges and relationships not through reactive impulses, but through measured presence and clarity. Her emotions become allies rather than tyrants, guiding her decisions and interactions with wisdom rather than overwhelming them with chaos or neediness. In cultivating this sovereignty, she also sets a powerful example for others, demonstrating that emotional independence is not isolation but a prerequisite for genuine connection and mutual respect. Her capacity to regulate her inner life fosters relationships rooted in equality and authenticity, free from the exhaustion of caretaking or emotional manipulation. This habit is a radical departure from the cultural narratives that equate emotional expression with weakness or chaos, reframing it as a profound strength that requires courage, discipline, and self-love. She understands that the path to wholeness includes embracing the full spectrum of feelings while refusing to be enslaved by them, embodying Jung's vision of a psyche where consciousness and unconsciousness engage in a dynamic dance of balance and growth. Her emotional sovereignty nurtures patience, as she learns to sit with discomfort and uncertainty without fleeing or fracturing, allowing transformation to unfold in its own time. It also cultivates humility, as she recognizes the ongoing nature of this work, inviting continual reflection and recalibration rather than rigid mastery. Her presence exudes a calm authority, magnetic not because it demands attention but because it emanates from a deep well of inner peace and authenticity. This habit supports her ability to set and uphold high standards not only externally but within her own heart, honoring her needs and boundaries with integrity and compassion. Through emotional sovereignty, she lives as a testament to Jung's timeless teaching that the integration of the self requires both the acknowledgement and the mastery of emotional life, transforming vulnerability into resilience and chaos into harmony. Her journey reflects the truth that unbreakable strength is born not from suppression or denial but from conscious engagement with the full complexity of the human experience, allowing her to navigate life's challenges with grace, clarity, and unwavering presence. Habit 3 is the profound act of rooting her identity beyond trauma, a conscious refusal to be confined or defined solely by the wounds and suffering she has endured, embodying Carl Jung's insight that true individuation arises when the ego surrenders its narrow narratives to the expansive, transcendent self that dwells beyond pain and limitation. This woman has traversed the dark landscapes of trauma with courage and honesty, allowing herself to feel the depth of her suffering without becoming captive to its shadows or stories. Instead of allowing her wounds to carve the borders of her being, she anchors herself in a self that is eternal, whole, and untouched by the ephemeral trials of life. Jung taught that the ego often identifies too closely with suffering, replaying old wounds in ways that fragment the psyche and hinder growth. But the journey toward wholeness requires a shift from this limited self to the recognition of the deeper self, a center of consciousness and meaning that transcends personal history and pain. By rooting her identity in this transcendent place, she accesses a wellspring of resilience, wisdom, and peace that no external circumstance can diminish. This habit is not a denial of trauma or a call to forget, but an invitation to reframe suffering as part of a larger narrative where healing, transformation, and purpose emerge. She integrates the lessons and scars of her past without allowing them to overshadow her potential or define her worth. Her identity becomes a dynamic interplay between acknowledgement of pain and affirmation of a self that is whole and evolving. This anchoring empowers her to move forward with clarity and strength, unburdened by the need to justify, explain, or hide her history. It fosters a profound self-respect and compassion, for she recognizes the universality of suffering and the sacred opportunity it presents for growth and renewal. Rooting identity beyond trauma allows her to embody Jung's archetype of the wounded healer, one who has faced darkness and emerged with the capacity to guide others through their own journeys. Her presence radiates a quiet authority grounded not in invulnerability but in the acceptance of imperfection and the courage to transcend it. This habit nurtures hope and possibility, inviting others to see beyond their own suffering toward the vastness of the self that awaits them. In a culture that often fixates on victimhood or survival alone, her rootedness in the transcendent self offers a revolutionary perspective that honors pain while refusing to be limited by it. It is a testament to the transformative power of individuation, where the psyche is not shattered by trauma but reforged into a stronger, wiser, and more integrated whole. Through this habit, she lives as a living example of Jung's timeless teaching that identity is not a fixed story dictated by circumstance but a fluid, evolving expression of the deepest self, capable of enduring and flourishing beyond any adversity. Her journey inspires a reimagining of strength, one that embraces vulnerability and transcendence in equal measure, creating a foundation for unbreakable resilience and radiant authenticity. Habit 4 is the sacred discipline of engaging in reflective inner dialogue, a practice that roots a woman deeply in the transformative process Carl Jung described as the journey of individuation, where conscious engagement with the unconscious fosters healing, growth, and integration of the fragmented self. This woman commits herself to moments of honest reflection, whether through journaling, meditation, therapy, or contemplative solitude, creating a space where the rushing currents of daily life subside and the subtle whispers of the unconscious mind can be heard with clarity. She approaches this inner conversation with courage and vulnerability, willing to confront uncomfortable truths, acknowledge shadow aspects, and explore the hidden motivations that shape her patterns and behaviors. This habit is not a passive retreat, but an active and ongoing dialogue where she listens deeply to the symbols, emotions, and narratives that arise from within, recognizing them as keys to unlocking greater self-awareness and psychological wholeness. Jung taught that the unconscious communicates through symbols and stories, and by attending to these messages, she cultivates an evolving relationship with the depths of her psyche, integrating insights that dissolve inner conflicts and foster coherence. Through this reflective practice, she nurtures emotional resilience, processing wounds and traumas not by suppression but through conscious acceptance and transformation. It allows her to discern between conditioned responses and authentic impulses, granting her the freedom to choose actions aligned with her true self rather than automatic patterns. This habit cultivates patience and humility, as she understands that growth is non-linear, marked by cycles of progress and setback, and that each reflection deepens her capacity for compassion toward herself and others. The inner dialogue becomes a mirror of her evolving soul, revealing not only what has been but also what is possible, inspiring hope and renewal even in the face of challenge. Her commitment to this practice anchors her identity in self-knowledge rather than external validation, fostering a groundedness that radiates calm authority and authenticity. In a world that often values speed and distraction, her dedication to reflective inner dialogue stands as a radical act of self-care and resistance, affirming the importance of the inner journey amidst external demands. This habit supports her ability to set and uphold high standards not as rigid rules but as living expressions of an integrated self, evolving with wisdom and grace. By engaging continuously with her inner world, she embodies Jung's vision of the psyche as a dynamic and unfolding system, where healing and transformation arise from the dialogue between conscious and unconscious. Her life becomes a testament to the power of presence and introspection, inviting others to embark on their own journeys of self-discovery and integration. This habit deepens her capacity for empathy, creativity, and resilience, equipping her to navigate complex relationships and challenges with clarity and balance. Through reflective inner dialogue, she walks the path of wholeness, becoming ever more unbreakable, not because of avoidance or denial, but through conscious engagement with the full spectrum of her being. It is a practice that honors the sacredness of her soul's journey and the eternal unfolding of the self, revealing the profound truth that continuous growth and healing are not destinations but ongoing processes that define the richness of life itself. Habit 5 is the vital practice of setting boundaries as profound acts of self-preservation, a necessary expression of the respect and love a woman holds for her own psyche, deeply aligned with Carl Jung's vision of the individuated self as one that must protect its wholeness against the dissolving pressures of external demands and relational dynamics that seek to fragment or consume. She understands that boundaries are not arbitrary walls of separation, but compassionate lines drawn with clarity and firmness to safeguard her energy, dignity, and psychological integrity, ensuring that her interactions are nourishing rather than depleting. This habit arises from a deep internal dialogue where she recognizes her limits and honors the sacred space within which creativity, growth, and authenticity can flourish undisturbed. Jung emphasized the importance of differentiation from the collective to achieve wholeness, and through her boundaries, she enacts this differentiation in daily life, claiming sovereignty over her time, emotions, and commitments. These boundaries serve as both shield and invitation, shielding her from toxicity, manipulation, or overextension while inviting relationships that respect her autonomy and value her presence fully. She sets them not from rigidity or fear but from a wellspring of self-awareness and compassion, communicating her needs and limits with kindness and unwavering clarity that fosters mutual respect rather than resentment. Her boundaries are living expressions of self-care that enable her to engage with the world from a place of abundance rather than scarcity, reducing inner conflict and emotional exhaustion. This habit requires courage, for it challenges ingrained cultural narratives that equate boundary setting with selfishness or rejection, especially for women conditioned to prioritize others' comfort above their own well-being. Yet she embraces this challenge as essential to her survival and flourishing, knowing that without boundaries, her capacity to love, create, and lead would be compromised. Through this practice, she cultivates resilience and emotional stability, as boundaries provide predictable structures within which trust and intimacy can deepen safely. Jung's psychology reveals that boundaries are vital to maintaining the integrity of the ego while allowing for growth and integration of unconscious material. Her habit of setting them reflects this dynamic balance. It nurtures her authenticity, allowing her to say no without guilt and yes with wholehearted presence, creating space for relationships and opportunities aligned with her values and soul's purpose. Her firm yet compassionate boundaries radiate a quiet authority that commands respect effortlessly, as others sense the clarity and strength underlying her limits. This habit invites others to consider their own boundaries and fosters a culture of respect and responsibility that honors individuality within connection. It is a practice that sustains her through life's inevitable challenges, providing a foundation of safety and self-trust from which she can navigate uncertainty with grace. By setting boundaries as acts of self-preservation, she lives Jung's ideal of the integrated self that honors both its separateness and its interconnectedness, embodying a power that is both gentle and unyielding. This habit is a cornerstone of her unbreakable spirit, a sacred ritual that protects the light within while inviting the world to meet her in truth and respect. Habit 6 is the profound practice of trusting intuition as a luminous guide through the shadows of uncertainty, a sacred reliance on the inner wisdom and instinct that Carl Jung revered as the voice of the self, speaking through the depths of the unconscious to illuminate paths unseen by the rational mind alone. This woman, tempered by trials and shaped by profound inner work, has learned to quiet the incessant noise of doubt and external expectation to listen attentively to the subtle currents of feeling, symbol, and insight that arise spontaneously within her soul. Jung taught that intuition is one of the fundamental psychological functions that connect the conscious ego to the vast wellspring of the unconscious, offering guidance that transcends linear logic and taps into archetypal knowledge and collective truths. By trusting this inner voice, she navigates the labyrinth of life with a wisdom that is both ancient and deeply personal, allowing her to make decisions rooted in a holistic understanding of herself and her environment rather than fragmented analysis or fear-driven impulse. This habit requires courage and faith, for intuition often speaks in riddles and symbols, demanding patience and openness to unfold its meaning over time, rather than immediate certainty. Her reliance on intuition nurtures a profound sense of trust in the unfolding of life's mysteries, inviting her to embrace uncertainty as fertile ground for growth rather than a threat to control. This trust frees her from paralysis in moments of crisis, enabling her to act with clarity and confidence even when external circumstances are chaotic or unclear. It is a compass that guides her through darkness, illuminating the unseen connections and hidden opportunities that rational thought alone cannot perceive. Her intuitive practice deepens her connection to the archetypal energies that shape human experience, fostering resilience and adaptability as she aligns her choices with the deeper currents of destiny and purpose. In a culture that often prizes logic and measurable outcomes, her habit of trusting intuition stands as a radical reclaiming of the soul's wisdom, honoring the mysterious and non-linear ways in which guidance can emerge. This habit also cultivates humility, as she recognizes that intuition is a dialogue rather than a decree, requiring continual listening and discernment to distinguish authentic insight from wishful thinking or bias. Her presence exudes a quiet magnetism, grounded in the assurance that comes from alignment with inner truth rather than external validation. Through this practice, she models Jung's vision of the individuated self as one that harmonizes intellect and instinct, conscious awareness and unconscious depth, creating a dynamic equilibrium that fosters wholeness and authenticity. Trusting intuition empowers her to move through life with grace and purpose, making choices that honor both her individual journey and the collective unfolding. This habit nurtures creativity and innovation, as intuition often sparks new perspectives and solutions beyond conventional reasoning. It also deepens her emotional intelligence, allowing her to sense the subtle nuances of relationships and environments with clarity and empathy. By embracing intuition as a trusted guide, she embodies the timeless truth that the most profound wisdom often arises not from certainty but from the willingness to listen deeply and act courageously in the face of mystery. Her journey invites others to reconnect with their own inner voices, fostering a collective awakening to the power of soul-guided living. In trusting intuition as a guide through darkness, she steps fully into her unbreakable nature, navigating the unknown with a heart both courageous and wise, a spirit aligned with the eternal dance of light and shadow that defines the human experience. The habit of acceptance and surrender is a profound expression of the inner wisdom Carl Jung taught lies at the heart of psychological wholeness, where a woman learns to embrace the realities she cannot alter with grace and courage, surrendering not in defeat but in profound alignment with the flow of life's deeper currents. This woman understands that resistance to what is only intensifies suffering and fractures the psyche, and through her practice of acceptance, she dissolves the inner turmoil born from denial and struggle. Her surrender is not a passive resignation but an active conscious yielding that opens space for peace and transformation amid chaos and uncertainty. Jung illuminated the necessity of embracing opposites within the self, and in accepting the limits of control and certainty, she harmonizes the tension between striving and yielding, action and stillness, light and shadow. This balance fosters resilience, as she no longer expends energy battling circumstances beyond her influence but redirects it toward growth, adaptation, and healing. Her acceptance is deeply compassionate, extending to herself and others, recognizing the shared human condition of impermanence and unpredictability. In surrendering without losing self, she embodies a paradoxical strength, a softness that contains power, a quietude that commands presence, a yielding that creates possibility. This habit allows her to find stillness in storms, anchoring her identity not in external outcomes but in an inner steadiness that withstands the shifting tides of life. It cultivates humility and wisdom as she learns from each experience the lessons hidden beneath surface struggle, seeing suffering as a portal to deeper understanding rather than a barrier to joy. Her practice of acceptance does not preclude effort or change but reframes them within a context of patience and trust in the unfolding process. She navigates adversity with a measured heart, acknowledging pain and loss without becoming defined or overwhelmed by them. Jung's psychology teaches that transformation requires facing reality fully, and her habit of acceptance and surrender is a sacred dance with truth that liberates her from illusions and false hopes. This habit deepens her capacity for empathy as she recognizes in others the same challenges and vulnerabilities that she embraces within herself. It also fosters a spaciousness in her relationships and choices, allowing connection and creativity to arise naturally without force or resistance. By embodying acceptance and surrender, she becomes a living testament to the power of grace under pressure, a beacon of peace that shines brightest in the darkest hours. Her unbreakable nature is forged not from denial of hardship, but from the alchemy of embracing it with open arms and an open heart. This habit invites others to release futile struggles and enter into their own sacred dialogue with life's mysteries, inspiring collective healing and awakening. In practicing acceptance and surrender, she walks the path of wholeness with dignity and courage, embodying Jung's timeless truth that peace arises not from controlling the outer world, but from mastering the inner landscape, transforming turmoil into a wellspring of strength and serenity that sustains her through all seasons of life. Habit 9 embodies the transformative act of reclaiming personal power through conscious choice, a profound shift from the shadows of victimhood into the radiant agency that Carl Jung envisioned as central to the process of individuation and psychological wholeness. This woman has traversed the depths of pain and disempowerment, confronting the wounds and narratives that once bound her in helplessness, and through deliberate inner work and self-reflection, she chooses to rise above the roles imposed by trauma and societal expectation. She understands that power is not given nor seized through force, but reclaimed as a birthright by embracing responsibility for her own life, decisions, and healing journey. Jung taught that the ego must differentiate from collective identity and unconscious patterns to achieve authentic selfhood, and in reclaiming her power, she asserts her sovereignty over her story, no longer defined by external circumstances but by the conscious narrative she crafts. This habit requires immense courage to face the lingering fears, doubts, and internalized voices that whisper limitation. Yet it also ignites a fierce determination to embody strength, rooted in truth rather than defense or denial. Her agency arises not from domination of others, but from mastery of self, cultivating a grounded presence that navigates challenges with clarity and resolve. She moves from a posture of reactivity and surrender to one of intentional creation, recognizing that while she cannot control all that happens to her, she can control her response and reclaim meaning and purpose. This reclamation of power dismantles the victim archetype that often traps the psyche in cycles of helplessness, opening pathways toward healing, growth, and freedom. It invites her to reclaim the parts of herself scattered by trauma and repression, weaving them into an integrated whole that shines with resilience and authenticity. Her conscious choices ripple outward, influencing her relationships, environment, and sense of possibility, transforming her world in alignment with her true self. This habit nurtures self-respect and dignity, as she no longer accepts narratives or behaviors that diminish her worth but stands firmly in her values and boundaries. It deepens her connection to the self, the archetypal center Jung described as the source of unifying power and wisdom within the psyche. Through this habit, she embodies the alchemy of transformation, turning wounds into wisdom, loss into learning, and pain into power. Her presence becomes magnetic and unshakable, inspiring others who witness her journey to consider their own capacity for agency and self-determination. In a culture that often glamorizes victimhood or masks power struggles with control and aggression, her reclaiming of personal power models a new paradigm of strength rooted in awareness, compassion, and conscious choice. This habit is a continual process, a dynamic dance of surrender and assertion that honors the complexity of human experience while affirming the potential for transcendence. It empowers her to write her own narrative, no longer constrained by past traumas or external expectations, but liberated to craft a life of meaning, purpose, and wholeness. Through reclaiming her personal power, she walks boldly on the path of individuation, embodying Jung's timeless truth that the journey to selfhood requires the courage to claim one's light and shadow, strength and vulnerability as integral parts of a radiant, unbreakable whole. Habit 10 unfolds as a transformative journey toward forgiveness, a sacred liberation that Carl Jung illuminated as essential for psychological healing and the integration of the whole self, where releasing bitterness and resentment becomes the pathway to reclaiming freedom and wholeness. This woman, forged in the fires of hardship and shadow work, has come to understand that forgiveness is not a simple act of absolution, but a profound inner alchemy that dissolves the heavy chains binding her to past wounds and grievances. Her journey begins with a courageous facing of pain and injustice, acknowledging the depth of hurt without minimizing or excusing it, and gradually moves toward a conscious decision to release the corrosive grip of anger and blame that threatened to consume her vitality. Jung taught that the shadow often holds these unresolved conflicts, and that forgiveness is a vital process of bringing light into darkness, transforming reactive patterns into conscious choice. Through this habit, she forgives not to condone harm but to liberate herself from the psychic imprisonment of resentment, reclaiming energy once drained by cycles of bitterness and allowing space for healing and growth. Forgiving herself becomes equally essential as she embraces her imperfections and mistakes with compassion, recognizing that self-judgment perpetuates suffering and hinders integration. This habit fosters a deep empathy born from shared human vulnerability, softening the edges of judgment and opening the heart to connection and understanding. It is a dynamic and ongoing process, not a one-time event, requiring patience, humility, and the willingness to revisit old wounds with fresh eyes and renewed intention. Her forgiveness dissolves the illusion of separation between victim and perpetrator, revealing a more complex web of causality and shared humanity that invites healing rather than division. In practicing forgiveness, she embodies Jung's archetype of the wounded healer, transforming personal pain into a source of wisdom and compassion that extends beyond herself to others. This liberation creates a profound shift in her inner landscape, replacing the heaviness of resentment with the lightness of acceptance and peace, allowing her to engage with life more fully and freely. Her presence becomes a living testament to the power of forgiveness as a transformative force, a quiet revolution that breaks cycles of harm and invites restoration. In a culture often resistant to vulnerability and reluctant to confront pain, her commitment to forgiveness stands as a radical act of strength and grace. This habit nurtures resilience as she learns to hold contradictions and complexities without fracture, balancing justice with mercy, accountability with release. It also deepens her capacity for love, as forgiving opens the heart to genuine connection unmarred by the past's shadows. By embracing forgiveness as liberation, she aligns with the timeless truth Jung revealed, that healing arises when the psyche integrates all parts of itself, including those entangled in pain and conflict, creating a unified whole capable of compassion and transformation. Her journey offers a beacon of hope and a pathway for others who struggle under the weight of grudges and bitterness, inspiring a collective awakening to the freeing power of forgiveness. Through this habit, she not only reclaims her own peace but participates in the healing of the broader human story, weaving threads of grace and renewal into the fabric of her life and relationships. Forgiveness becomes not an end but a sacred beginning, a continual unfolding of mercy, understanding and love that sustains her unbreakable spirit and nurtures the wholeness Jung described as the ultimate goal of our shared journey. The habit of seeking meaning and purpose emerges as a sacred alchemy through which a woman transforms the raw material of suffering into a luminous source of wisdom and direction, embodying Carl Jung's profound insight that the quest for meaning is essential to the process of individuation and psychological wholeness. Having journeyed through the depths of pain and adversity, she refuses to let suffering define or diminish her, instead engaging with it as a teacher that reveals the hidden contours of her soul's calling. This transformation begins with an honest confrontation of the shadow aspects revealed by trauma, where despair and loss are not avoided, but integrated into a larger narrative that transcends victimhood and despair. Jung taught that the psyche seeks balance through symbols and purpose, and in aligning with a higher calling, she taps into archetypal energies that infuse her life with significance beyond personal circumstance. This habit fuels her resilience as the meaning she discovers becomes a wellspring of strength and hope that sustains her through ongoing challenges and uncertainties. By connecting her experiences to a greater purpose, she moves beyond mere survival toward flourishing, crafting a life that reflects not only healing but also contribution and growth. Her pursuit of meaning fosters a deep connection to the collective unconscious, where the individual journey intersects with universal themes of transformation, redemption, and creation. This alignment invites her to participate actively in the unfolding of a greater story, one that weaves her unique gifts and lessons into the fabric of shared human experience. Seeking purpose nurtures her sense of agency and empowerment, as she recognizes that even in the face of suffering, she holds the capacity to choose how her story is told and what legacy she leaves. It invites continual reflection and recalibration, as purpose is not static but evolves with her growth and the shifting rhythms of life. This habit deepens her empathy and compassion, as understanding her own pain's meaning opens her heart to the struggles and aspirations of others, fostering authentic connection and service. Her life becomes a testament to Jung's vision of wholeness, where suffering is not an endpoint but a passage to deeper awareness and fulfillment. In a culture often focused on avoiding pain or seeking immediate gratification, her commitment to seeking meaning challenges prevailing norms and offers a path of profound richness and depth. Her presence radiates the quiet power of a soul aligned with its destiny, inspiring others to look beyond adversity toward the gifts embedded within. Through this habit, she embodies the archetype of the seeker and healer, a woman who walks bravely into darkness to retrieve the light of understanding and share it generously. Seeking meaning and purpose becomes both her compass and her sanctuary, guiding her steps with clarity and grounding her spirit in a truth that transcends circumstance. It is a living practice of hope and renewal, inviting continual discovery and transformation that sustains her unbreakable nature. This habit anchors her in a reality where suffering is honored not as a curse but as a catalyst for awakening, reminding us that the deepest wounds can become the wells of the richest wisdom. Her journey of aligning life with higher purpose invites us all to embrace our own capacity to find meaning amid struggle, fostering a collective evolution toward healing, wholeness, and radiant authenticity. Habit 12 unfolds as the sacred cultivation of resilience through the practice of patience, a deliberate and profound embrace of time and process that Carl Jung recognized as essential to the individuation journey, where true strength arises not from swift conquest, but from enduring with grace the unfolding mysteries of the psyche and life's trials. This woman understands that resilience is not a mere capacity to withstand, but a dynamic, evolving force, nurtured by the slow, steady rhythm of patience that softens resistance and allows transformation to occur beneath the surface, often unseen yet deeply felt. In the face of hardship, she does not rush toward resolution or demand immediate relief, but rather surrenders to the unfolding process, trusting that healing and growth require time to weave their intricate patterns within her being. Jung taught that psychological development involves cycles of destruction and renewal, where patience serves as the faithful companion guiding the soul through darkness toward light. Her practice of patience is not passive resignation but an active, conscious stance that honors the natural tempo of change, allowing emotions, insights, and shifts to mature fully without being forced or suppressed. This habit fosters a resilience that is flexible and robust, enabling her to absorb life's shocks without fracturing, maintaining an inner equilibrium that sustains her through repeated challenges and uncertainties. Patience becomes a form of self-compassion, recognizing that the psyche's wounds and the wounds of circumstance cannot be hurried but must be met with kindness and respect for their depth. It nurtures humility, as she learns to relinquish control over outcomes and to embrace the unknown with openness and curiosity. Through this habit, she cultivates a quiet strength that radiates from within, a calm presence that steadies not only herself but also those around her, offering a sanctuary of stability amid chaos. This endurance is deeply rooted in the understanding that growth is non-linear, marked by periods of seeming stagnation, regression, and breakthrough, and that patience allows her to navigate this terrain without despair or defeat. Her resilience, nurtured by patience, is a living testament to Jung's vision of the self as an integrating force that reconciles opposites and embraces paradox, embodying both vulnerability and power, surrender and assertion. This habit deepens her capacity for trust in herself, in the process of life, and in the unfolding of her own soul's path. It invites a radical acceptance of imperfection and uncertainty as essential companions on the journey rather than obstacles to be overcome. Her presence becomes a beacon of hope and steadiness, inspiring others to cultivate their own patience as a foundation for resilience and healing. In a culture often obsessed with speed, immediate results, and relentless productivity, her practice of patience stands as a radical act of resistance and wisdom, reclaiming the sacredness of time as a healer and teacher. This habit strengthens her ability to set and uphold high standards without harshness or haste, allowing growth and transformation to arise naturally from a place of balance and respect. Through cultivating resilience with patience, she embodies the timeless truth that the deepest strength is born not from force but from the gentle persistence of love and presence sustained across time. Her journey invites us all to slow down, to honor the rhythms of our own becoming, and to find grace in the enduring process of healing and growth that defines the path toward wholeness and unbreakable spirit. The habit of embracing imperfection and vulnerability stands as a luminous testament to the profound psychological truths Carl Jung revealed about the journey toward individuation, where authentic wholeness arises not from the pursuit of flawless perfection, but from the courageous acceptance of our human contradictions, flaws, and fragilities. This woman has learned through deep inner work that vulnerability is not a weakness to be hidden or feared, but a sacred gateway to authenticity and meaningful connection with herself and others. In embracing her imperfections, she dismantles the masks and defenses crafted to protect a fragile ego, revealing the raw, unfiltered essence of her being, a presence that invites genuine recognition and empathy rather than judgment or superficial admiration. Jung taught that the integration of shadow and light requires facing the uncomfortable truths of ourselves with compassion, and this habit is a living embodiment of that truth, where she holds her vulnerabilities without shame, allowing them to soften and humanize rather than diminish her strength. Her willingness to be seen in moments of imperfection creates a profound resonance with others, fostering connections that transcend surface interactions and touch the deeper currents of shared humanity. This openness nurtures trust and intimacy, as others are drawn to the courage and honesty she models, feeling safe to lower their own defenses and reveal their authentic selves in return. Embracing imperfection also enriches her self-understanding, as she recognizes that growth is not linear or flawless but a dynamic process of trial, error, healing, and renewal. This awareness cultivates patience and self-compassion, enabling her to forgive herself for mistakes and shortcomings while continuing to strive toward greater integration and balance. Her vulnerability becomes a source of creative power, unlocking emotional depth and insight that fuels resilience and adaptability in the face of life's challenges. It challenges cultural narratives that equate strength with stoicism and perfection with worth, offering instead a radical redefinition where true power emerges from authenticity and relational openness. This habit invites a harmonious dance between acceptance and aspiration, where she neither resigns to flaws nor denies the potential for transformation, embodying Jung's vision of a psyche that embraces paradox and complexity without fragmentation. Through this practice, she cultivates a presence that is magnetic and deeply human, marked by warmth, humility, and an unwavering commitment to truth. It supports her ability to set and maintain high standards, not by imposing unrealistic ideals, but by honoring the fullness of her being and the evolving nature of selfhood. Her journey through imperfection and vulnerability becomes a beacon of hope and healing, inspiring others to embrace their own shadows and gifts with kindness and courage. In a world often obsessed with image and invulnerability, her habit stands as a quiet revolution, a reclaiming of the soul's right to be whole in all its facets. Through embracing imperfection and vulnerability, she walks the path of wholeness with grace and integrity, embodying Jung's timeless truth that the integration of all parts of the self, flaws and strengths alike, is the foundation of unbreakable authenticity and connection that nourishes both self and community. The habit of inspiring others by living her truth is a quiet yet profound testament to the transformative power Carl Jung attributed to the archetype of the individuated self, where the woman's unbreakable presence radiates authenticity and integrity that silently uplifts and encourages those around her without need for proclamation or performance. This woman has traversed the depths of her psyche, integrating light and shadow into a coherent whole that embodies resilience, wisdom, and grace, and through this integration, she becomes a living symbol of what is possible when one commits to the arduous yet sacred journey of self-realization. Her presence is magnetic not because it demands attention, but because it emanates a calm certainty rooted in deep self-knowledge and unwavering alignment with her core values. Jung taught that the self is both an inner guide and an external force, and in living her truth, she exemplifies this dual role by embodying an energy that inspires transformation through example rather than instruction. Those who encounter her feel invited to reflect on their own lives, to question the masks they wear and the shadows they avoid, sensing in her a mirror that reflects not only her strength but also the latent potential within themselves. This silent encouragement fosters a ripple effect, cultivating courage and hope in others as they witness the embodiment of unbreakable authenticity. Her habit of living truthfully nurtures an environment where vulnerability is honored and growth is welcomed, creating spaces where others feel safe to explore their own paths toward wholeness. It challenges cultural narratives that equate power with dominance or conformity, offering instead a vision of leadership grounded in presence, empathy, and profound self-acceptance. Through her example, she demonstrates Jung's insight that true influence arises from being fully oneself rather than from external assertion, and this influence transcends spoken words, touching the unconscious in ways that catalyze deep change. Her life becomes a silent sermon on resilience, integrity, and the transformative capacity of embracing all facets of the self, illuminating the path for others who seek freedom from fragmentation and fear. This habit also deepens her own journey, as the commitment to live authentically requires ongoing self-reflection, humility, and courage to navigate challenges without compromise. It invites a continual renewal of her connection to the self, strengthening her capacity to embody the wholeness that inspires others. In a world often fragmented by disconnection and pretense, her unbreakable presence offers a grounding force, a beacon of hope and possibility that elevates collective consciousness and fosters a shared aspiration toward healing and growth. Through the habit of inspiring others by living her truth, she participates in the sacred dance of individuation not only for herself but as a catalyst for communal transformation, embodying Jung's timeless teaching that the journey to selfhood is both deeply personal and profoundly relational. Her life is a testament to the power of authenticity to transcend adversity and illuminate the way toward a more integrated, compassionate, and resilient human experience. The conclusion arrives at the profound truth that unbreakable strength is born not from superficial resilience or denial, but from the deep and often challenging integration of all parts of the self, a wholeness that Carl Jung illuminated as the essence of individuation and the foundation of true psychological power. This woman, having cultivated habits rooted in shadow embrace, emotional sovereignty, authentic identity, reflective dialogue, compassionate boundaries, intuitive trust, acceptance, reclaimed agency, forgiveness, meaning, seeking, patience, vulnerability, and living her truth, stands as a living testament to the transformative alchemy that unfolds when fractured fragments are woven into a coherent, dynamic whole. Jung taught that the psyche is a complex system where conscious and unconscious elements must be reconciled to transcend fragmentation and achieve harmony, and her journey exemplifies this sacred process, where light and shadow, strength and vulnerability, pain and wisdom coalesce to form a resilient core that cannot be broken by external trials. Her unbreakability is the product of this integration, a force that flows from the self's ability to hold contradictions without collapse, to engage with complexity without avoidance, and to move forward with a grounded presence that radiates calm authority. This wholeness empowers her to navigate life's challenges with grace and authenticity, not through resistance or denial, but through acceptance and mastery of her internal landscape. It nurtures a profound sense of inner peace and confidence that reverberates outward, influencing relationships and environments in subtle yet powerful ways. Her strength does not demand recognition but commands it naturally, arising from a foundation of integrity and self-respect that no external circumstance can diminish. This state of being invites others to witness the power of integration and to consider their own journeys toward wholeness, fostering a collective awakening to the possibility of unbreakable resilience grounded in authenticity. The habits she has cultivated are not isolated virtues but interconnected facets of the psyche's unfolding, each supporting and enriching the other in a delicate balance that sustains her through ongoing growth and transformation. In embracing the totality of her experience, she honors Jung's vision of the self as a unifying center that harmonizes opposites and transcends the ego's limited narratives. Her life becomes a sacred dance of becoming, where unbreakability is not a static state but a living, evolving expression of the soul's journey toward fullness. This wholeness is the wellspring from which all other strengths flow, a dynamic integration that transforms wounds into wisdom, fears into courage, and fragmentation into unity. It challenges cultural illusions that equate strength with invulnerability or perfection, revealing instead that true power arises from embracing imperfection and vulnerability with compassion and courage. Through this lens, her unbreakability is a radiant embodiment of the eternal truth that the self heals and empowers itself not by rejecting its shadows but by weaving them into the light of conscious awareness and love. This conclusion invites us all to honor the complexity within ourselves, to engage with our own shadows and gifts, and to recognize that the journey to wholeness, though often arduous, leads to a strength so profound that it remains unshaken by the inevitable storms of life. In living from this place of integrated wholeness, she not only embodies unbreakable strength but also becomes a beacon of hope and inspiration, guiding others toward the sacred path of individuation and the radiant freedom it brings.